Great.
Mhm.
Got that, Jen? All right. That's
Okay,
very
and yep, we'll make sure that we have it recorded. Um, all right, and I'm going to tap on Chris Price. If you don't mind letting folks in as they come in, Chris.
Not a problem.
Thank you. All right, so welcome everyone to our monthly webinar. This month's webinar is Mastering Your Masters, including firm, project, and product content. And our presenter for this webinar is Elias Saltz. I also have from the Conspectus Cloud, or from the Conspectus team, I have David Stutzman, I believe, is on. And actually, I have to make sure I have my windows right. David Stutzman is on. I have Ted Kenny, who is our Director of Sales. Doug Bevel, who is our General Manager of Conspectus Cloud. And I see a couple of other conspecticians, Tom Fulner and Chris
Tina,
Price.
I
Yes.
got a favor.
Mm-hmm.
When you introduce these people, ask them to wave
Oh, sure.
so that when I get to a skip meeting, I'll recognize them.
Absolutely. So let's see. Tom, can you give a wave? There's Tom. And Elias, who is our presenter as well. You may recognize him
I
from
know
Skip.
him, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You may know him. And Chris Price, if you want to jump on and wave real quick. he's behind his avatar there. Okay. So I am, let me make sure I have. Sorry, I have to move my windows around. I am Tina Montone. I am the industry liaison with Conspectus, and I will be facilitating this meeting. All right, so the first question, the first slide I have up is to get to know who is here, who is in the crowd. So this is real easy if you have a phone or if you have another screen on your computer. If you could go to menti.com, you can see here at the top of this window. If you go to menti.com, MENTI, and type in the code 42286175, and it will give us an idea of who is here in the crowd. You can identify yourself. You want to architect anonymously. So we don't know who is responding. We just know what your answer is.
I'm not responding.
Okay. Well, we know you're a specifier, so we'll count you.
Well, I don't even know how to get on the cloud.
Oh. If
On
you
my phone.
if you have a browser, if you have an iPhone, it's probably Safari.
Yeah.
Right. Then just go to menti.com, MENTI.
So we know we have 3 specifiers here. There we go. Okay, so we have a good idea of who's in the crowd here. So let me, we'll tell you a little bit more about who we are, and I'm going to hand it over to Elias to give you a little introduction on Conspectus.
Thanks, Tina. So Conspectus is founded in 1992 by David Stutzman, who's the handsome fellow on the left picture on the bottom left. And it has grown since then to become the largest specifications company in the industry. We currently have 14 specifiers and a number of other people who are supporting our Conspectus Cloud client customers and also doing some general maintenance or administrative type work. The photo in the middle is myself, David, and Steve Gantner, who is the other executive vice president. So the three of us are the owners of Conspectus and are going to carry it forward into the future. And then on the right, this photo is already out of date. We actually have more people now than are shown in that photo, but that was our team photo from last December. And so we definitely need to update that to get the rest of the folks in that photo for this year.
Yep, we definitely need to schedule it. So thank you for giving a background as to who Conspectus is so that you can understand why we're qualified to talk to you about masters.
Right. And it's worth pointing out also that we are specifiers, but we include among us engineers, architects, and then other people come to us from other related walks of life as well. So, but at heart, what we do all day is write specs.
So let's find out a little bit about the audience's confidence in your own master content. So if you go into Menti, it will prompt you onto the next question. So if you happen to log off, it is menti.com, menti.com, and the code is 42286175. So what is your confidence in your particular firm or your organization? Do you feel as though your content is up to date on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you strongly disagree, it is not up to date, to strongly agree, you have really good, solid content? Second question is effective maintenance process in place. How are you maintaining your masters? And do you have reliable sources that you use to maintain your masters? Looks good. That's great. So we have good confidence that the content is up to date, and maintenance is always a big challenge, right, Elias?
Oh, absolutely. It's the biggest challenge, really.
Yeah. And making sure you have good resources to help with that maintenance.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, if everybody is that confident in their content, then I guess we can just end this earlier and get back to work.
Right. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can give a couple. See, we'll breeze through some of these over high level things and get to the good stuff. Okay, so starting at the basics, there are 2 types of specification formats. Can you give us an overview of each format? What is the history, purpose, and how is it used?
Right. So Uniformat, which is used, it came into being first published in in the early 1990s by NIST. It was an ASTM standard, and then CSI also published a version of Uniformat, also in the early 90s. And what it is it's an organizational method for describing buildings, assemblies, from the bottom up and from the outside in. So it's divided up into broad categories of underground, shell, and then it goes into interiors, building systems, equipment, and services. So each one of those broad groups takes into account multiple various components, but it's designed where you can describe the performance and other attributes of a building early on in the project, and then is also keep it up to date as you develop more and more detail about the project. So it's a great way to organize your information early on, and then it really does lend itself directly to writing full 3-part specs, which we can get to in a moment. But the best things about Uniformat and writing in what CSI calls PPDs, preliminary project descriptions, and Conspectus calls systems and performance descriptions, is you add on information as you learn it. So it's additive. You describe the building, what you know, when you know it, and then by the time you get to a completed project, you can actually just continue adding more and more information to it. It gives you very easy ability to compare different systems and then hand those descriptions off to an estimator who can then put conceptual estimates onto it. Uniformat, the entire system was originally designed or created by estimators as a way to quickly estimate and organize information for buildings.
And the BIM families are also identified in a similar system as Uniformat, correct?
Right. So Revit does use assembly codes inside its libraries, and those assembly codes link directly. They actually are Uniformat codes. So if you're working in Revit, you can organize your project using Uniformat. Right, and then master format. Everybody in here who's a specifier who deals with construction specifications knows master format. It's the numbering and titling system that was it's published by CSI, and it's a way that we organize our full 3-part construction specifications. So 3-part construction specifications that are organized by master format typically you start working from some sort of master, whether it's a commercial master or a house master, and you just delete the stuff that's not required. So as opposed to Uniformat, which is built up, you add information as you get it. With master format, you're actually removing the stuff that doesn't apply more often than not. And it's significantly more detailed and is used to describe the technical aspects of every aspect of a project.
Okay, so who uses masters? Getting into the actual standards that organizations and firms use. Who uses them, and what are typical masters?
Well, there's numerous typical masters. You would want to think about them from kind of a big picture coming down. A firm would maintain a library of masters that serves their use on the widest array of the types of projects that they work on. So if a firm works on multiple different types of projects, they would have a library of masters that they could then apply broadly to all of their masters. Whereas, and then when you're talking about project type masters, you're going to have a subset of masters that maybe apply to healthcare projects that have so healthcare projects will have certain things in them that are not going to be found in most other types of projects. Similarly, school projects will have some things, and then data centers, that's the third mysterious icon on the screen there. And then finally, industrial projects, where if you work on that, you're going to end up having a lot of stuff in the Division 40s that don't apply broadly to most other types of projects, but you'll definitely want to have masters to cover the types of projects you're working on.
Okay, let's get into the sources of information so that you can start to build your library. What are the common, it's very daunting when you are thinking about creating specification masters. So where do you start and how do you start?
Well, commercial masters is definitely probably the best place to start. These masters have been around for a very long time. There's multiple different master libraries out there that you can pull from. Obviously, the big one that has been around the longest is Master Spec, which is an AIA controlled product. It does have a very broad library of sections. It doesn't have everything. No one commercial master library has everything that you'll ever need, but certainly you can come pretty close to getting most of the stuff with almost any of them. So commercial masters, you're paying for them, and then you get to use them. The second source that you're going to use to build your master library is to take things from previous projects. Like I mentioned, commercial masters do have holes in them. They don't have everything. So if you've written, say, I noticed recently that one of the main commercial masters doesn't have a section for traffic doors. So where are you gonna go if you need, one of those restaurant double swinging doors? Grab one from a previous project. Once you've got that, you can pretty easily turn it into an office master. So obviously, well, custom written, again, if there's a hole in in your commercial master and you don't have something from a previous project, where are you going to get it? You can write it from scratch, start with a template, and then just build it up with information that you find from, product sources. And then manufacturer guide specs are a good place to start. Their language is not always super terrific. A lot of manufacturers now are actually using commercial specification consultants to help them write their guide specs. So it does seem like they're getting better in general. So we do appreciate the manufacturers that go to professional specifiers to help them. And also we appreciate those specifiers that help out the manufacturers, because really do get better specs, and those specs can lend themselves to becoming masters if they're well written.
Okay, so we started with the sources of information. Now let's start at the top. We have our starting point of where we gathered our information. Now, where does one begin once they have their sources of content identified? Take us through the steps to make it a bit less daunting. And let's note that quality is more important than quantity. So what are these steps, Elias?
Well, step one is just think about the projects that you work on. Think about what specifications you include on those projects. What specifications are on 100% of your projects? So you think about joint sealants, you think about the drywall, gypsum board assemblies, think about painting. Those types of spec sections are going to be ubiquitous. Every single project is going to need those sections. So those are your highest priority. So any sections that are used on all of your projects, certainly prioritize those. Think about then the next tier, what are some things that are on 80% of your projects? Then add those. So obviously write the first section, the highest priority ones first. Start with division 1, because those, obviously every single project is going to have division 1. Once you finish that bunch of library, then think about what is the next tier of things that are on most of your projects, but not all. And then eventually you'll get to the point where you're only looking at, well, you have 90% of your specs that cover, are completely covered, and then maybe 10% are missing. So then you can start prioritizing those remaining 10% to just round out the edges, I would say. So, and then, this is where you're getting your information from. Again, previous projects, that's where your knowledge base is. It lives in the projects you've written before. You're going to get information from manufacturer websites. You can visit, bring in as many data sheets as you can. So all of this information you're going to need to gather before you start writing any spec section. And then keep that information. Keep it in a, a digital library, so you can refer back to it when there's a question about something that comes up in your master. Where did this information come from? You can always go and try to search it out again, but it's better if you've already got it at hand.
Because then that leads to
That leads to maintaining your content.
hey, and a fun fact about Conspectus, we have a more broad scope of master specs.
Right. So if you look at our library, we're getting close to 200 master spec sections, which certainly, we're in that 90% of all of our projects are completely covered. And then, there's a few sections here and there that we're adding in. But the reason that we decided to have fewer sections is that we take a broad scope approach. So it rather than having a library that looks humongous but actually is very, very repetitive, we've taken sections that may be split up by some of the competitive master systems and combine them together without losing any of the necessary technical information. So is there really a reason to have separate spec sections for PVC roofing, EPDM roofing, and TPO roofing? We decided not. We decided it just makes more sense to have a section for membrane roofing, and then any minimal differences between those systems in terms of the way that they are applied or installed can simply be handled inside the specs, inside the masters. And actually, by using our tagging system, if you choose one particular type of roofing, most of those differences will be pre-selected, so you don't even need to worry about having the wrong stuff show up. So, and then, similar, there's again no need to have multiple spec sections for different types of countertops. Countertops are basically countertops, and the only difference is some of the materials. Similarly with toilet partitions. So by taking in all of those different types of similar products into one section, you not only make it easier to write the specs, you also make it easier to maintain the specs.
So it is about quality more than quantity, and it isn't about having a plethora of spec sections. It's about having reliable sections and reliable content. So going a little bit more, you were talking about the broad scope versus narrow scope. So maybe we can hone in a little bit more. So scope matters when delivering this information to the contractor. This is an area where you can bring trust to the documents by clearly communicating through your specifications. What is broad scope versus narrow scope, and why is it so important?
I think the most important thing is keeping things straightforward for contractors. If you can combine multiple types of products that might be in the same project into one section, it makes it easier for them to keep track of it. I used countertops as an example. So say your project has quartz countertops and solid surface countertops. Those products are very, very similar. They're basically just a manufactured hard surface product. So why split those up? You can talk about, if you're going to have different types of countertops in your project, you label one on the drawing countertop 1, you label the other one countertop 2. You just use those same tags in the spec. You have one spec section for all of the countertops. The contractor knows where to find it, doesn't have to page back and forth between different spec sections, which might have inherited different language or things that are just not quite right between them, or inconsistencies. Just minimizes confusion, and it makes the project go more smoothly if you can control that information in one place. So that's the advantage of the broad scope.
And we do something a little bit different in our master format specifications too. Can you talk a little bit about this image here and what the summary includes to provide that broad scope, high level picture of what is communicated to the contractor?
Right. So you're noticing that under summary, you might be used to seeing the first subparagraph being called section includes. So our opinion is that is a little bit open for interpretation. You know, some people will just use the part 2 articles for what is in section includes. But the part 2 articles are already there in part 2. So there's really no reason to list them again. So our approach is to list the work results, which is really what the specifications are for, is for describing the work results in detail. So what is in a cement plastering section? Sure, you could say the section includes cement plaster, but that doesn't tell you that much. It doesn't tell you how it's used, doesn't tell you where it's used, it doesn't tell you what type of assemblies it's used in. So what we say is, under work results, we describe the assemblies that include the products that are going to be specified in the spec section. And then under principal products, it's the actual products that are included in this section. So, you know, in the example here, it describes an entire wall assembly, which is plaster with a weather barrier, sheathing, and frame structure backup. And it tells you where this particular assembly exists, which is in a guest room tower. So just by saying all of that, it tells the contractor exactly where this section applies in the project. The same work results, it actually really should be included in the other sections mentioned as well, like the air barrier section, the sheathing section, and the cold form framing section, since all of these different components all belong in the same assembly.
Okay, so we're going to dip down into the technical side of writing structure. There are rules of grammar and language that contribute to being clear and concise. What are these points?
Wow. So writing style, imperative mood is strongly recommended. I would say that sentence is not imperative. That should say use imperative mood. That's imperative. That's the imperative mood. So when you say imperative mood is strongly recommended, that's the passive form. The next one, reduce prepositional phrases. Well, I should actually explain why imperative mood we say to use it. And I think everybody here probably understands this. The construction specifications are instructions for the contractor, telling them what they must do. So the best way to tell somebody what to do is just tell them, you know, if you're telling somebody to clean their room, you wouldn't say, you shall clean your room, or your room shall be cleaned. That doesn't, I mean, it's correct technically, but it doesn't, it's more words than necessary to get to the same point. Similarly, reducing prepositional phrases is a strategy to make the language easier to understand. I had an example that I used for a blog a few years ago. And there's a paragraph in one of the master specification systems about removable railing posts. And the sentence goes, for removable railing posts, fabricate slip fit sockets from steel tube whose ID is sized for a close fit with posts. Limit movement of posts without lateral load measured at the top to not more than 1/40th of post height. So there's 40 words and 8 prepositional phrases in that sentence. So there's certainly probably many, many, many ways to simplify that. But just if you can simply highlight the prepositional phrases in your specs, and think of ways to remove them, you can probably get down to 10% of the prepositional phrases that are, and those are the ones that are probably really needed, and the rest of them can all go away and your specs will be much more simple. So our solution for that particular sentence was removable post-slip fit sockets, steel tubes, limit top post movement to 1/40th of post length minimum. So we, without losing any of the technical language requirements for this, simplified it to make it much easier to understand.
And don't just do it in one section, right? Make sure consistency and whatever, however your writing style is, make sure it is consistent throughout your entire master content.
Yeah, exactly. The specifications should always feel like they've come from a single author. And if you're not being consistent across your various spec sections, or even within the same spec section, it's, while it's not the end of the world, it's not great. You want to have a good approach to specifying, and you want to use it everywhere. And then, if you want to learn more about streamlining your specs and spec language, the CSPG is an excellent resource.
All right, let's move on to what the most daunting part of masters. Now that you have your amazing master content all together, the fun begins in maintaining it, because nothing ever stays the same, right? So what are some ways that the content can become outdated? Let's start there. What should we look for, Elias?
Well, it's always just important to be listening to as many sources as possible, reading, keeping up on things, reading the industry news. You're going to find that manufacturers are buying each other all the time. Sika just swallowed another company and is rebranding all of the master builder solutions stuff. So, the idea being that in a couple of years, all of those master builder solution brands will be gone. And then you're going to want to make sure your masters are updated to only name the new Sika products. So that's one thing. New manufacturers come into existence and bring out new products. You want to know that. Products get discontinued or the names are changed. Within, painting companies are notorious for changing their products all the time. Codes change, so that's a huge one. A few years ago, the code started adding roof edge securement into the codes. So do your masters reference the SPRY ES1 test standard? Well, they really should, because that's something that is not just a design decision like NFPA 285. You need to know that your assemblies passed NFPA 285 before you even start writing the specs. But whether your copings pass SPRY ES1, something that definitely needs to be in the specs. And then the reference standards, those are on a renewal cycle. So every few years, the ASTMs have to be renewed. And if they're not renewed, they expire. So do your masters include expired standards? How many of your masters still reference the AMA 621 coatings for coil-coated steel, galvanized steel? Those standards went away, so you can't reference them anymore. So just being up to date on that, and then new standards are coming out as well. TCNA is releasing brand new standards for gauged porcelain tile. those are things you're going to want to reference in your masters. So these are all things that constantly changing. Every day something is different. It's all, it's takes a team of people to be out there learning about what's changing and getting that information updated in the masters. And it's lucky that Conspectus has a good team, and everybody who's working on specifications for Conspectus is empowered to update our masters whenever they learn something.
So there are ways to clean it up and get back on track to reliable specifications. And as you said, all of our specifiers do update our masters, and it is approved, does get approved by one point person who is Elias. So Elias, what are some ways that you can recommend in keeping content current?
So these ones that we're showing are probably our big picture strategies. Every one of us has a great relationship with a lot of product reps who are local to us. I'm visiting with product reps regularly. Product rep calls me, I'm going to pick up the phone every time because I know that they're going to have information that I will want to evaluate for our masters. If I'm responsible for good content, and I know that the product reps know more about their products than I do, then so I'm going to answer the phone and I'm going to listen to them. When you want to know when code changes happen, so you can actually go in and see what's changed. We're doing lunch and learns at Conspectus. And during those lunch and learns, whatever content, whatever topic the presenter is talking about, I will have the master or masters open on my other screen over here and just be scrolling through, and as they're talking, I'll be checking to see if what they're saying is accurately reflected in our masters. And if not, I'll just make a note and follow up with them and make the changes as we go. We're getting comments from our clients who are using our specs out in their projects in the field. If they get comments from the field, or if they find something that's not correct, we'll make those changes. We actually have a button right on the Conspectus Cloud page, every single page. If anybody wants to make a comment about content, we're soliciting that, and then we evaluate those comments in real time and make updates. And then contractors' comments as well. They're the ones who have to build from the specs. So if they find something is either wrong or incomplete, we want our masters to be as complete as possible. So anywhere we can get feedback is, we're taking it.
Yep. And all of this helps build our content, which is housed in Conspectus Cloud. So Elias, can you talk to us about how Conspectus Cloud, how people can use the masters in Conspectus Cloud, and everything that goes in with it to make the specifications successful?
Right. So Conspectus Cloud customers, they can start from using the CC masters, the masters that Conspectus has written and is maintaining on any of their projects at any time. Those are always available. On top of the CC masters, which are built into the system, any of our customer firms can upload their own masters. So you actually have two master libraries at your fingertips at any time for every project. So even if you have the same section in a firm master as exists in a Conspectus Cloud master, you're able to choose which one you want to use. And similarly, you can, if you have consultants who are providing spec sections, you can upload those as part of your firm master as well. The other thing you can do is pull sections from a previous project to a new project. It's not exactly the same as a master, but in a pinch it works as well.
And then
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just going to say with master updates, how does that work in Conspectus Cloud?
So, like I mentioned, yeah, we are updating our masters all the time. We want everybody to have access to our latest and greatest masters. So there is a tool built in where if a master gets updated, either a Conspectus Cloud master or a firm master, and that section exists in a project, you can, there's a tool built into Conspectus Cloud that will let you compare the master that was originally used for the project, the updated master, and the project version. So you can then pick and choose which paragraphs, which updates you want to apply to your project.
And on the maintenance side too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's it.
Okay. And then on the maintenance side, as we mentioned, and how important that is, we're able to keep that transparency with all of these people who are mentioned, manufacturer technical reps, trade people, owners, etc.
Right. We have in Conspectus Cloud, we have a project that we've used to populate our current masters, and we invite manufacturers, especially manufacturers, but essentially anybody, to visit that particular project and comment on what they see in the masters. And the beauty of it is that, we know that the manufacturer reps, they all know each other, and if any of them are going to be bad actors or try to make suggestions that will somehow exclude their competitors, so we don't want that. We want everybody to be honest and give us their best advice. So all of the commenters can actually see each other's comments. So we didn't know exactly how that was going to go, but it actually turned out to be the best approach, because not only did these manufacturers typically agree with each other's comments, but they actually will build on each other's comments. One manufacturer will say, even about their own product, I wouldn't put my product in this category because it's a different chemistry. I recommend putting it with these other products. And then the other manufacturer rep would say, agree and say, I would think that, my product would also not belong in this menu, or, but they will actually cooperate and collaborate with one another to improve the guides, rather than kind of put each other down or anything like that. So it's been a real positive getting those collaborative comments, because it's really very rapidly allowed us to improve our content. And we typically will get that type of feedback as a first pass on any new master before we put it out for the public to use, because it just helps to have another set of eyes, and an expert set of eyes on a master spec.
Okay, before we're going to dive into Conspectus Cloud next, but before I take away my PowerPoint here and hand the reins over to Elias, I did just want to show you this real quick. So if you want to take down the contact information, Elias, again, is our Senior Specifier Executive Vice President out of Chicago. There's his email address. And I also have up here Ted Kenny, who is our Director of Sales for Conspectus Cloud. He is out of Portland, Maine. So give you just 1 second to either take a screenshot or write down. Or I will also follow up with everybody who is attending to make sure that you receive this information. Okay, so let's jump into, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to allow Elias to share his screen so that he can actually show you some of those points that he talked about in Conspectus Cloud.
All right. So this, probably most of you have seen Conspectus Cloud. I'm going to first take to the manufacturer review. So I hope this is a good example. Oh, this one was just replaced. Let me find one that has lots of comments. So this is how we would solicit comments from manufacturers. We just put the specs out there and invite the manufacturers in. And many of them have come in and, just made suggestions about changing these products to other products. So that's what this looks like. And it looks like we haven't made these changes, but this is actually not the master. This is a snapshot of the master. So we actually have gone in and made all of these updates, added all the Tnemic products that Chris has suggested, updated by the information that Sean Faulkner from PPG put in. So getting this feedback, very, very helpful. I guess before we go further, I don't know if anybody had any questions. Were there any questions that popped up in the chat or anything? No.
Let's see here, just looking. Fewer documents. Loretta said fewer documents, and she also said construction specifications of Canada, CSI's friend to the north. Mm-hmm. It has a fifth C consistent, and Dave said not to forget caffeinated. Is also one of the
fewer, not less. Did the slide say less, or did I say less? I don't know.
Fewer. I don't know.
The slide said yes.
Is there any attempt is there any attempt to identify which products are not even available on the East Coast or the West Coast when you list names?
We do that, yeah. And those we put in as editor notes. So the specs will not necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily say, if my project is on the West Coast, I'm going to click the West Coast button and then it'll only pick those products. Although that is something that you could build in to your masters using our global tags. It's not in there at the moment, but so what we do is in our masters, let me just open one up. So we put edit notes. So that's similar to the hidden text or just guide text in other systems. Let me find. So I don't know, this might be a little hard to read way off there. Let me go and blow this up.
See, like I'm looking, Wholesome Elevate, I never even heard of them. So I don't know
Yeah,
On the
that used to be
west-
called Firestone.
Oh, okay. See,
Yeah. So there, you just learned something.
we don't see them much out here.
Okay. So yeah, Firestone Roofing they were bought out and the name changed. So, that's just stuff that we need to keep track of.
I'd be
Yep.
happy to jump in and just show the master updating process if you'd like. I know we
Sure.
only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
So here I'll share my screen. So just to show everyone how we kind of work master updates into Conspectus Cloud, and keep in mind, this is both for our Conspectus Cloud master content. This same system applies to your Office masters. So if you're to import them into the system and maintain them yourselves, you can use this same exact system. So essentially, when you're updating your specifications, it gets passed down to the user base at a project level. So when you update your masters or when a Conspectus Cloud master update comes out, it flows down at the project level. And if you're using our Conspectus Cloud masters as the basis for your firm masters, our updates will flow through to your master. And then you have, with the same system I'm going to show you here, the opportunity to accept or reject those master updates, which then flow down at a project level for your users to use. And I know Elias had mentioned earlier that recycling past project specifications when needed. The beauty of this system is that because the master updates flow down to a project level, if you are to reuse a past project specification, say an individual section, you can apply those master updates to that section that you've reused right at the beginning of writing the spec. So there's no risk of having out-of-date content in that spec that you're using now on your new project. So just to show you, this is the My Projects page. This is our kind of main dashboard where you can see all of your projects. You'll notice this red M here up at the top right-hand corner. When I click this, it's going to filter all of the projects that I have in my database currently that I've been added to or I've created by the ones that have master updates available for them. So I'll go into our Maker's Mansion project here. This is just kind of our sandbox environment. You're seeing our uniformat specs that we have for this project. And then down here at the bottom, you're seeing your master format specifications that we've developed for this project. When I hit this red M here again at the top, what it will do is it will filter all of the master format specification sections that I have master updates available for. So I'm going to go into, say, cold metal formed metal framing here. And you'll see again up here at the top right-hand corner, we have this red M. When I hit this red M, what it will do is it will show basically three different versions of the master, right? So on the left-hand side here, this is the original version of the master I used to start this project specification. In the center, this is the master that's been updated, in this case by our Conspectus Cloud team. And then on the right-hand side, this is actually the project I'm working on. And I have the opportunity to come through and accept or reject the master updates and apply them to my project, at a project level. We do also have the opportunity to accept all master updates up here at the top. So in the use case that I mentioned, you've recycled a past project specification. You want to make sure it's up to date before you start going in and adjusting it for the specific project. You simply click accept all and it'll apply all the master updates to that section. So as you scroll through here, you can see, keep in mind this is a demo account, so it's accumulated a lot of master updates. We don't update this project that often. But again, you have the ability to come through and accept or reject the master updates. This same system works at a master level if you're using our Conspectus Cloud master content for your masters. So you'll be able to accept or reject this, and then again, it will flow down to all of the projects that you have in your database as well. As you're scrolling through here, one other nice feature that we've built out. So on the left-hand side, you'll see this, breakdown of the spec itself. This is not for adding specs. This is just for navigating the spec itself. So you can quickly click these and it'll bring you, to that exact section. We've also built in this location tab. And this is for when you have, just one line of text that's been updated and you don't want to have to scroll through the entire spec to find that highlighted element. you can click this location tab, and essentially it shows you like the density of changes that's occurring here, and it highlights them so you can go in and see, okay, there's a big section that's been added here. Let me go in and take a look at that. And again, if I want to apply it to my specification, I can accept it, and then it will apply to the project itself. Any questions on our master updating or any comments? We'd love to hear any feedback that anyone has, and please feel free to just come off mute.
Thank you, Ted, for showing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, this is Jen. I have a question. So I'm sorry if you already mentioned this and I missed it. Do you guys link products in the specs?
So linking products in the specs is something that is going to be added. And we actually will be partnering with manufacturers to, help design professionals find the information about their products. So that's coming soon.
Okay,
And just
thank
to
you.
to show a preview of that, I'll just pull up our Conspectus Cloud specifiers portal. So this will be the information that will be linked within the specification. So when you're wanting to research a manufacturer more, find out more information about them, you'll be able to access these specifiers portals. So we'll essentially provide all the information that you need on the individual products. You can click details here, and you can get 3-part specs, data sheets, any BIM files if they have them, as well as brochures. So this will be available through Conspectus Cloud, and we're just now working to partner with manufacturers on this. And keep in mind, with our Conspectus Cloud content, we're not a pay-to-play system. So manufacturers can approach us and ask to have their content listed in the specs. Our team of specifiers, including Elias, reviews their content and reviews their products, and then we list those in the specifications. We don't prioritize any one manufacturer. They're all listed out alphabetically. So another kind of important piece to keep in mind. I'd also point out that these specifier portals do link directly to ForSpecs. So if you are a ForSpecs user, you'll have the opportunity to go to ForSpecs to research more. Also, if you're in ForSpecs researching things, you can access these specifier portals as well. So we're very excited about that partnership too.
Okay, so I did manage to make this work. So say you were in a project, you need to add a spec. You say of the example I wanted to use was exterior stone cladding. So you would come down, you would decide you're going to add exterior stone cladding. Before you click the button to add it, you're going to choose the source that you want to use. So the very first one on the list is the CC master. So any section, so this list is everything that's master format, anything that's in master format is going to be in this list, whether or not we have sections for it or not. The ones that we do have sections for will say CC master right here at the very top. You can actually filter so that you're only showing the sections that we have CC masters for. Actually, this takes a few minutes, so cancel out of that. But it will filter and only show the CC masters. Once you've decided that you want to use the CC master for this, click the button. If you want to use a previous project, any project in the system that is in your firm library that you've used this spec section before are listed here. So if I wanted to use this project's version of the exterior stone cladding section, I would just pick that, click the button, or you just start with your CC master, click it, and it'll load that section into your project. So it's really that simple. So if you have a CC master and a firm master, the firm master version will appear below the CC master. And that looks like this. So it'll say firm master. So we have 0997C79733 is not a master format number. So in order to use that in a project, we have a firm master, because you can have any number or title that you want in your firm masters. It's not limited to master format. And then the other thing you can do is you just bring in a completely blank section. And all that'll have then is just part 1, part 2, part 3 with nothing on it. You can always change the source later on if you add something into your section and it's not the one that you're looking for. Just come back to the same page, pull it down, change the source, and it'll bring in a different version of that section, from whether it's from a project or from a different master. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's any questions about that.
Yep. And we are at 2:05, or 5 minutes after the hour. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out to Elias or Ted.
I'll
And
just
with
add,
that-
we'd be happy to provide a personalized demonstration for you and your colleagues anytime. And if you'd like a trial of Conspectus Cloud, we'd be happy to set up a test project for you to get in there and poke around.
And with that, we'll conclude the webinar. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and hopefully we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep, bye,
Thank
thanks.
you.